Hello Wolfpack, we're back here on Bitcoin today and we're going to be looking at the daily chart, we're going to be looking at this fractal, and we're going to be looking at the weekly chart in relation to the 50 and 200 week SMA, and we're going to be looking at why we've dropped, right? Because a lot of people would say that, hey, this drop is totally unexpected. We had an inverse head and shoulders pattern, and the next move was upwards. Well, you would know if you watch my channel that I entirely disagree with that premise. I've been saying this drop was going to happen for a long time, and my actual precise words were that, well, we're either going to drop now or we're going to go to 48k before we drop. Why did I say 48k? Well, let's look into that quickly and then we can jump back on the chart right now. Now, before I get into this, I think Bitcoin is going to go to the 200 week SMA, which is this green line. And that's currently sitting around 20k. And by the time we get there, it could be anywhere between, say, 21k and 24k. That's where I think Bitcoin is going to go. I think it could get there as early as April, as late as November. November being the 4-year cycle theory, April being the month after interest rates have risen. That could potentially lead to a crash in the traditional markets, which could also lead to a crash in Bitcoin. So there's a lot of speculation and there's a lot of kind of rough predictions in my prediction, but it is worth noting that I've been predicting that Bitcoin's going to go down of a 200 week SMA since the 58k region, and I've been advocating selling since 66 to 63k. I've been bearish for a long time on Bitcoin. I've been bearish since basically the top, almost the top, less than 10% away from the top. And so I'd consider this a successful prediction. I don't feel the need to be certain as to what the time frame would be, but I know where we're going, right? That's the most important part. I know where we're going. We're going to the 200 week. There's lots of evidence for that. But as of right now, let's look into evidence for a potential further bounce, right? Because it's not out of the question, but obviously given this wedge breakdown, it is very unlikely at this point. But in 2018, what we saw on Bitcoin is a drop below this red line, which is the 50-week SMA, and we had a short-term bottom around 25% lower, and we got to that short-term bottom in about 4 weeks, as you can see that by this little data panel right here. We then, from that short-term bottom, jumped up in 5 weeks, 45% to the 50-week SMA, okay? And then we rejected from it, okay? So bearish either way, we rejected from it, and then ended up at 200. Okay, so what have we done this time? Well, we've done something very similar, and it hasn't fully played out yet, which is slight evidence for the fact that we might be seeing a little bit higher, but it doesn't need to happen at all. All right, so we've dropped below the 50-week. Just like in 2018, it took 4 weeks to reach a local bottom, and it took 32%. In 2018, it took 25%, so very similar percentage as well. And then it's taken 4 weeks so far to run up, right? So it would have been 45% to get to the 50-week if we got there, which is the same as 2018, and it would have taken 5 weeks, which is the same as 2018 as well. So far, we've done 4 weeks, and we're up about 40%. So it would suggest, this fractal would suggest that we go a little bit higher to the 50-week at 48k before rejecting, but it doesn't need to happen. Also, it's worth noting the BLX is behind, it's lagging, so we're at 40k right now. Doesn't need to happen at all. In fact, I'd say there's probably a more likely chance right now that we're at the top. And this didn't affect my prediction at all, right? I was never saying anyone should get in the market. I said that it could happen, but I don't recommend you getting because it's not likely, right? It's not likely enough for me to think, oh yeah, we need to get in now. It's a good trade. I was not in the market. I never said anyone should get in the market. And so my prediction has been correct. We've dropped down. We had a double top formation. We looked at this 2 days ago. We've been saying this move wasn't going to work for like 2 weeks. And the reason we've been saying that first and foremost is the fact that on every green candle, as you can notice down here, the volume has been depreciating rapidly, which means there's no momentum behind the move, right? We've been saying this for weeks and people just don't listen. In fact, I received many dislikes on those videos for being bearish because a lot of people just have this idea in their head that it has to go up. It's not true. It's simply not true. The market moves down and it can definitely go lower. The market can go to 20k. It can, right? Just because you think it can't, it doesn't mean it won't. So we've had descending volume on this move upwards, which means lack of momentum, lack of buyers, and then on top of that we had a double top formation at around the 44k region with bearish divergence on the RSI. If you zoomed up you can see it more clearly. Bearish divergence on the RSI and a double top formation. Currently, the redeeming quality for Bitcoin is the fact that we're managing to just hang on by a thread to the 40k support zone, but we've also dropped below this downtrending red line here, this downtrending red line. You can see we've just dropped below that on daily candle close. That's been actually coming through since the top in April, so that's a long-term downtrending red line, which we've lost for support now. And we've managed to lose, or break below, I should say, this ascending wedge formation, which is typically a bearish structure, which is another reason why I was bearish in the market. We had an ascending wedge formation with descending volume. It doesn't get that much bearish. It doesn't get that much more bearish than that. All right, and people were screaming for 50k. It's like, well, open your eyes, guys. Come on. We're in an ascending wedge formation with descending volume. It's really not rocket science. This is a very predictable move. What we can see as well is we have a bearish MACD cross forming. If we see one more red candle, and that red candle is going to come from a drop below 40k. So if we drop below 40k, we'll have that bearish MACD cross, and that's going to send us plummeting straight down to that 33k region, in my personal opinion. I think that if we see that bearish MACD cross, we'll go straight to 33k. From that region, we have a chance of forming some sort of double bottom formation. Now, I don't want to fully rule out this inverted head and shoulders pattern yet, because the left shoulder here actually bottomed out at 40k. Okay, so we could realistically still have a chance of forming an inverted head and shoulders. It would be a bit rough, it'd be a bit sketchy, but it's still possible. And so that's why I'm not fully ruling out a retest of 48k yet, but I think it's unlikely, and I don't think you should be entering trades. I don't think it's worth it, right? You know, that would be the 20% gain. The amount of risk you're taking is exponential. I don't think it's worth it. Even if it happens, I don't think it's worth it. But I think it's unlikely at this point. Another thing we need to be looking at here is the stochastic RSI, and that would suggest that, hey, well, the top is in for this move, and we need to go further down below 40k. And the reason being, and I know stochastic RSI is a little bit rough sometimes, but the reason being is because, well, every time we've topped out in stochastic, literally every time in the past few months we've dropped. Okay, so we topped out here November 11th. November 11th was the day we topped out. Okay, we had a massive drop down from that point. We also topped out here on November 30th. November 30th was the day we topped out in this region. We dropped down massively from that point. We topped out here in December 27th, right? December 27th was our dead cat bounce top. We dropped massively from that point. Again in January 14th, right? We dropped massively from that point, and now we've topped out. It's been a little bit more extensive. Not quite as clear cut, but we are dropping right now, and you know, the reasons behind that are very, very clear in the charts. And so, well, what needs to happen for Bitcoin to miraculously recover and be bullish again, right? Because being bullish is the critical thing. It's like, where would we be bullish? Well, 48k is where we'd be bullish. And I know I just said, well, there's a chance we go to 48k. Yeah, there's a chance we go to 48k, but the chance we go to 48k is relying on the fact that we get rejected at 48k and head downwards from that point. So the very top we could go is 48k, but in order to be bullish, we need to break 48k. And you might say, why is that? Well, first and foremost, Gaussian channels in that region. We've got volume profile POC in 47k. Bull market support band is in that region as well. Ikamoku cloud is in that region as well. And the 200-day SMA is in that region as well as the 50-week guarding 48k. So there's lots just below 48 that if we get above 48, we will be above. So that is the critical region. Right now we have a fractal as well, okay? And this is another thing that would support we retest 48k. So you'll notice that I'm not fully ruling out a retest of 48k. Even though we've dropped at 40k, I don't fully rule out a retest of 48k. It's still very much a possibility. It's unlikely, but it's still very much a possibility on the table. I'm not entering anything though, okay? But I still am very open to the possibility of it happening. Well, first and foremost, because that chart I just showed you before. And secondly, because, well, look at this fractal from 2018. This is a fractal cut straight out of a 2018 dead cat bounce. And we can see the similarities here that you don't even need to rule them out. They're crazy similarities, similar top, similar consolidation patterns in all sectors here, right? And then an inverted head and shoulders pattern in the 2018 fractal as well, just like what we saw just then. And then in the 2018 fractal, we had this inverted head and shoulders pattern, and we jumped up a little bit to the 50-week, which is at 56k relative to current prices, right? Our 50-week is currently at 48. And so it would suggest that we see a jump to 48 before rejecting downwards and doing something like that, and then go to the 200-week. So, you know, there is still the evidence for 48k. I'm not ruling it out, as I said, but, you know, I don't think it's worth jumping on a trade for. I don't think there's enough. I think it's only circumstantial evidence, not actually hard cold TA, right? The hard cold TA would suggest we go down further. And whether that's short term, long term, doesn't matter. We're going down further, okay? So whether it takes 2 weeks to get there or whether it happens this week, that's the question, right? And that's the question. It's very, very hard to answer at this point in time. But given the fact we've dropped out of this ascending wedge, I'd say if we close below 40k, right, very clear. I'd say if we close below 40k, we close a daily candle below 40k, we're going straight to new lows, right? Straight to new lows. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next video.